Hi, welcome to the CEO podcast. Today we have Murielle Fellous. She's joining us from Israel. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Well, as you can hear it, I'm sure you're going to hear it as soon as I start talking. I'm originally from France. I grew up in France and I left when I was 18. I lived in Israel for a while. I met my ex-husband here, who was from California. So he wanted to move back. So I said, why not? And I ended up living 25 years in the US. Recently came back like 3 years ago. Since I can remember, I've been always helping people who were coming to me even in high school when they felt that they were in some kind of suffering. So I guess I have a soothing effect on people even before I became a healing facilitator. So in a short version, I raised 3 kids by myself in the US. I ended up raising my kids. That was quite a journey, which inspired what I'm doing today. And we can go into your questions.
Yeah, please tell us more about what you do. I noticed your healing effect the first time we talked. You're very calming. You're very, like, your voice is just lovely to listen to. But tell us more about what you do on a day-to-day basis and who you help.
Mainly because of course, it's never 100% the same. Mainly, I help single moms with difficult teenagers because I went through that. I went through really teenagers who were acting out. I was living in Las Vegas, so they were going to parties, exploring stuff that were very scary. And I ended up spiraling into depression without realizing. And I was waking up every night with heart palpitations, anxiety like 24/7, because I was afraid they would fry their brain one day. That forced me, that depression was a gift, frankly. That forced me to change the way I was doing life because I had a tendency to be an over controller, wanting to control every detail, protect everybody. Of course, it's impossible. And I learned it the difficult way. So I was like praying because I've always meditated since for the past, I think, 23 years. I've always been meditating almost daily. And I was like, help me or take me. I was in such despair.
Yeah.
And one night I woke up and I realized that I was judging myself so harshly that it was preventing me from seeing what was and start the healing. I had this idea, this belief that if I didn't like my life, if I complained about my life, since I had 3 healthy kids, everything was okay, that meant that I didn't really love my kids. And that was, sometimes we're walking paradoxes. It doesn't mean on one side you can have that being true, and on the other side, I love my kids can be true as well. So that night, it really hit me like a, I don't know, lightning. And I started crying and really starting to have more compassion for myself, less judgment. And I started really applying what I taught my clients because up to then I was coaching more women on relationships, love relationships, family relationships with difficult dynamics. I started applying what I give my clients. Like I doubled my meditation. I used tapping, like emotional freedom technique, every day. I journaled more. I really started digging into my fear and going to the bottom of it because we have a zone of power and a zone of powerlessness. So my zone of powerlessness was if I was meant to lose a kid, God forbid, in this life, there's nothing I can do that's going to prevent that. So I really had to go into that fear all the way down to the bottom, like saying, okay, if I lose a kid, God, the universe, source will give me the tools to deal with that once it will happen. Because that I noticed in my life, we always are given the tools when things happen. Whether we choose to see it or not, that's another question. So there is no point in allocating my energy, my thoughts to that because I cannot control it. And
Yes.
I will be guided. So I focused on my zone of power. And I started really developing a step-by-step approach, which I use in my life until today in every area of my life, which is both using the power of the brain, training your brain, the power of our energy vibration, which is like an elevator. Depending on what floor you stop at, you're going to be matched with whatever is there. And opening a space for life, God, the universe to guide me, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. So it's like being ready to meet a person who's going to teach us that, or suddenly being attracted by a book, which happened to me too, and really stay aware of what is coming your way when you say help me, and be flexible on the form that it takes.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for all of that. That's a great intro and background to where you're coming from today and talking to us. So this podcast, it's for creative entrepreneurs. And when I spoke to you in our initial interview, I just absolutely loved your approach with that space of powerlessness and power and energy frequency. And I really wanted to chat with you today to help bring entrepreneurs awareness to those spaces, because I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we have a lot of self-doubt, we have a lot of fear, we have to, battle with the economic situation, and we have to constantly, adjust for different client energies and things like that. So I really wanted to take your approach and see if we can apply that to business and to ensuring that we are getting our mindset to a place that is the most beneficial for us to keep giving our clients our best selves and producing the best service. So can you speak to us a little bit about that, and maybe a few ways to start to approach understanding where our own heads are at and how we can start to move through that?
So as I mentioned, we have to be flexible with the form. That's one thing that is super important, because I know we want our business to go a certain way, to look a certain way. But sometimes we don't know that our highest good is actually different from what we want. So to stay open to how it can look. And I apply that in my business all the time, because I also have the self-doubt. I also have moments where I'm like, oh, I have nothing to say to anyone. And I'm like, what are you, which thoughts are you entertaining now? Because it's going to bring you down. So be flexible on the form, and know that our job is to be aware of our emotions, because on any moment, the results are dependent on our action. We reverse engineer. The results that we want are dependent on the actions that we're going to take. The actions that we're going to take are dependent on how we feel in the moment. How we feel in the moment depends on what thought are you entertaining and what vibration are you at. So our job is to, first of all, develop some awareness about how am I feeling. I know for me, when I'm going to record a video, I make sure that I am centered, that I am connecting heart to heart in my mind with the person I want to help, whatever the service or the good that we're providing. You're there to give something to someone. So where are you coming from? Are you centered? Are you calm? Are you open? And we need to develop some awareness about that. The other thing is to start developing awareness about how we talk. Sometimes you say, I'm so confused. I used to say, I'm a horrible marketer. I don't know. I hate marketing. I don't like to sell. This is not in my genes. I stopped saying that, because we have a part of our brain called the reticular activating system, which acts, one of the role of that part is to match the outside world with our inner world. So if you say, I don't have any ideas, I don't know how to market myself, I don't know how to find clients, your brain is going to show you in the world all the proofs that you're right, because we want to bring coherence. So start paying attention to what you say. That starts there. And pay attention how you feel. And from there, of course, when you see that you feel negative emotions, you're going to have to dig. I know that for an entrepreneur, we have this notion of the market. And since in the world today, the markets are like fluctuating, there are recessions, there are people have more fear, maybe some have less money. We tend to right away go towards our fears. And that's a normal reaction, because our brain is trying to keep us alive. Any threat that we perceive at the brain level, it's a life or death
Right.
threat. So we're going to go on fight or flight mode, which is like the stress response, fight, flight, or freeze. And we're going to block our brain. We're going to block our creativity. We're going to vibrate at that level of fear. And everything is going to be matched with fear or impossibility.
I think that's a great point, and I want to just bring some attention to that, is that we're living in a very modern world. We're an intellectual species. We think of ourselves as very, very advanced, but we have to remember that we are still like an evolving biology, and our brain is primitive. So absolutely, you're correct. If anything comes into our awareness that is scary or frightening or is a threat of any kind, that can be like the economy based, it can be imposter syndrome, anything that makes us feel like we aren't enough or we can't succeed, is going to give our primitive brain that fight or flight, life or death reaction. And that's where, as a more intelligent species, we need to remember that we have the ability to change our thoughts. And I think that that's really what people need to kind of focus on and start to understand and just be consciously aware of, because like you said, the things we say out loud have an effect, but the things we think have an effect too, right? We're listening to our own thoughts. And I see that so much. Like even last year in my business, I'm in construction and things were a little bit slow because of interest rates and things like that. And people kept saying, how's business? How's business? And I'd be like, oh, it's slow right now. It's slow right now. It's slow right now. And then I was like, I need to stop saying that, because I'm exacerbating the problem by putting it out into the world and putting that, that energy out that it's slow. I'm only going to be met with more slow. And so when I stopped saying that, I noticed an immediate shift in people calling and emails coming in and being like, hey, we're thinking about this. And it's like, wow, you see it so quickly when you adjust your perspective.
It's amazing the speed at which it can change and the effect that it can have. Like in the last week, I had 2 clients falling on my lap from meditation, from changing my expectation, being really, really, really aware. What do I expect? But because I can tell myself I expect clients, but how is my body responding to that? Is there a contraction or is there an expansion? Do I feel okay or do I feel somehow stressed at any level? And that can be a muscle tightening here. That can be a ball in my stomach. Really start connecting to our body. And you said we are a species that is an intelligent species. In my opinion, there is too much emphasis,
That's okay.
On the intellect and not enough on the emotional and emotional intelligence. We don't learn that. We don't learn. Anytime, before I started this kind of work, anytime I heard the word emotional was in a negative connotation. Oh, you're so emotional. Women are emotional. But our emotions, first of all, they are messengers. There are some that feel good, some that don't feel good. And when it doesn't feel good, we need to not experience them and run away from them. There is a message. Inquire. What is your body telling you? And we shouldn't, I don't like the shouldn't, but it is better for us to learn to develop emotional regulation, which that's why I use tapping, to not let ourselves be directed by our emotion, like those balloons that are deflating everywhere in the air.
Yes.
That's what happens sometimes. An emotion comes, and instead of saying, wait, let me ground into this moment, take some distance, we go with it and we spiral into the worst case scenario, and that does not help us as entrepreneurs. It ends up being like, when I go into those mode of, I have nothing to say, everything has been said, and believe it or not, I had a belief that said people don't listen to me. And since I started taking a mirror, and that was true in my business, that was true in my friendships, I had people interrupting me, and I was starting to be frustrated. And I said, okay, everything comes from me first. Where do I not listen to myself? Where do I not hear myself? Where do I not see myself? So I started mirror work with a mirror and say, with loving eyes, looking into my own eyes, saying, I hear you. I see you. I love the movie Avatar because that sentence, oh my God, I listen to you. I approve of you. Very basic stuff. I kid you not, my YouTube channel, it's still very small numbers, but it started climbing by itself. So of course, you're more motivated to put content
Mhm.
and you enjoy it more. So it's a positive cycle.
Yeah, positive affirmation or positive reinforcement. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like giving a dog a treat when it does something good.
Yes, exactly. You reward the work of putting content, and I started also saying, when I'm confused, I tap on it. And if we have time to do some tapping, we can tap on fear, and I will, your listeners will have another tapping video on confusion. Whatever you want, I'll create it after based
Thank
on
you.
what's going to happen here. When I'm confused, I tap on I am confused. I let myself feel it, because it goes like that. It comes in and it flows out. If you don't let yourself feel, it gets stuck somewhere and it will reappear, and it will drive the bus from behind without you knowing. So I open a space and I say ideas are going to come. And sometimes I'm working on numbers or something, and suddenly I have an idea and I feel super good about it. I write it down on a piece of paper, and that's my next video. So creating the space for good inspiration, not putting your focus on what's going wrong right now in the market, how slow it is, putting the focus on there are wealthy people, there are people who want what I have to offer. There are always, even in the most difficult recession, some people became rich. So some people had money and kept it. I mean, they don't disappear. So if you put your focus and your energy there, that's what you want to attract. That's who you want to see. When you are conscious that there exists, you open your eyes in the world and you're going to spot an opportunity. Someone's going to come to you. I had a case once where I was driving with my son and we were going somewhere, and I felt the urge to stop at a certain Starbucks coffee next to my house. There was not even a drive-through. I had to go down. I said, I don't know. I just feel like getting myself a coffee there. So I stand in line and I speak to my son in French. And the man behind me said, oh, you're French. And we started talking. He was French too. And he became a client. So pay attention what your urges are, what you feel like doing suddenly. And
I have a very kind of quick, maybe an initial example for people if they're maybe unfamiliar with this type of work. I think a lot of my listeners are a little bit on the woo-woo side, because we kind of bring both to the table in most of the episodes. But for me, I really tap into this when I'm, for example, sending an email to a client. I will, if I get an email that's maybe a little bit harsher from a client or kind of feels yucky when I get it, I'll respond and I will continue to kind of revisit that until I feel good about it. And it doesn't even have much to do with like how I'm saying it. It's like I'll tweak a few things and then I like sit with it and it's like, nope, something's still kind of off. And I tweak a few more things and then I sit with it and something's still kind of off. I even do it with estimates and contracts. Like I'll review it, and if I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, the math is correct and the number looks right, and is it right? And I'm like, no, it needs one more tweak, or like, and you just have to tune in. So I think just like you said, just really kind of trying to listen to what your body's saying and try a few experiments. If you haven't done this type of thing before, give it a shot and be like, is this right? How do I feel? Okay, yeah, I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to go for it and send that email or send that estimate and go with it when it feels good. Can you explain to us, and for those who don't know, a little bit more about what tapping is and how that works on our nervous system?
So first, I want to say that it's not that woo, because now science is backing up. It's
I agree. I agree with you.
Very rational there. I'm a double Capricorn, so believe me, I have both sides in me.
Yeah.
Tapping. Tapping is a technique that is composed of elements of Chinese medicine, acupuncture, where we use the meridians in the body that they use with the needles to help people. And modern psychology, we have elements of cognitive behavior therapy in it, exposure therapy, and we marry the two to help the person regulate their emotions. So we tap on the end of the meridians, which sends an electric pulse to the meridians and the nervous system to send a message to the body that it is safe. You can move away from that fight and flight response. You are safe now. And when I have clients who have trauma, I always have clients who have trauma. And without even having a need to talk about what happened, because I want to mention that it's very dangerous to work on trauma if you don't know what you're doing and you're talking about it, you're reinforcing the neural pathways in the brain. Without even talking about what happened. You tap, you say, here and now, in this moment, I'm safe. And you feel your feet on the ground, your buttocks on the chair behind you. You look at outside, I see trees, I see a lamp, and you come back with your presence to this moment. That's what tapping does. And when you have something that scares you, you have associated an emotional response with it, fear. What tapping does, it intercepts the brain response to break that neural association. And soon enough, that, let's say, picking up the phone and talking to a potential client, that scares a lot of people. We are very afraid of it. A more neutral response to that. And then when you're neutral enough, you can even go into the positive, like, oh, I wonder, what if they sign up right away? What if, even if they don't sign up, that brings me another client? I have a friend, we were talking yesterday, she has a business for years, and she was explaining to me that she had a potential client. She matches families with, elderly people homes. And it's a very emotional journey for the family because they feel guilty. You need to find the exact place that they need based on the needs, etc. And she was telling me that she had someone who contacted her 2 years ago. She didn't become a client, but a week ago she contacted her again, and now she's ready. You never know if you're putting content online. There is a notion of, the lurkers, the people who always watch, but they never buy anything. One of these days, when they will see you enough, when they will need what you have to offer, when, in your case, when they'll have the budget to redo their house or their room, they know you, they trust you, they will contact you. So don't underestimate maybe nothing's happening, because behind the surface, things may.
I think that's a good point. That the last episode or 2 episodes ago, I was talking about that. Like, you need several touch points with clients in order to really bring them in and for them to be able to trust you. And I think a lot of times creating content does feel tedious, and it does feel like a waste of time, especially if you aren't provided with that instant gratification of somebody saying like, yes, I would like that, or goes and buys the product. You post something about something new you have for sale and it's crickets, and you're like, ugh, like, why I wasted all that time creating that piece of content. But you're completely right. It's over time those things build, and all of a sudden you'll realize like, okay, well, now I've sold 10 of that product, and I've had the content out for 6 months or whatever it might be. So I think that's a really good thing to remember as well. So
I want to say, don't expect that you need several times, because sometimes it happens the first time. So
yes, that's the dream.
That happened to me. So that can happen to anyone.
Yeah. And I love that you keep mentioning that, like seeing examples in the world. I had an episode of a couple seasons ago. We called it exemplifiers. So seeing people that are doing what you want to be doing, or having the clients you want to have, or have, whatever it might be. If you see somebody out there who has it, it is also achievable for you. And I think that's really important.
And frankly, to be fully transparent, I had in the past envy and jealousy. So if that's what you feel, intervene on that, because until you can celebrate the success of someone else energetically, you will not get there. You will stay in that, oh, they have it and I don't. They had the connections and I don't.
Yes, this is a really good bridge. Sorry, I keep interrupting you because I'm excited about what you're talking about, but this is a good bridge to explain the elevator concept, because I really love that analogy, and I think if you can use that energy of envy versus feeling happiness for someone else's success, I think that would be a really good one to explain to people.
So between envy and happiness, there is a huge gap, and people sometimes they try to go too fast, too high, and it doesn't work. The concept of the elevator, when I explain energy and even emotion fluctuation to my clients, you have the bottom floor that is like depression and despair. You have hopelessness, powerlessness. Then you go a little bit higher, anger. The more you go up, the more alive you feel. But let's say you're at the floor of envy. And you can't be happy for them because you're mad that they have what you don't have. They worked in that, I don't know, PR company for 10 years. And of course they have the connections and I don't. I'm alone in my house, and you vibrate at that level. It's like pushing a button on the elevator. Okay, at the floor of envy, what can I meet? Who can I meet? What are you going to meet at that floor? Other people who are going to show you why you need to be envious. Other people who are going to make you mad, or maybe it's a desert. There's nothing happening. That's sometimes even worse. And until you're able to really intervene at a body level, at a nervous system level, because changing our thoughts, when the thought is not that strong and active, you can do it with your head. I pick another thought. I can do that. When you're really triggered, you need your nervous system is reacting. You need to go through the body to intervene on that and choose something more neutral. Before you can be happy with them, you got to be maybe more neutral. Oh, like you said, oh, if they did it, maybe it's possible for me too. Why not? And then you get to, oh my God, look what she achieved. That's amazing. That's possible. I was watching an interview last week about a lady. Her name is Miss Excel. She became viral on TikTok, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, something like that. And I was listening to an interview that she did on the day where she hit 6-figure sale for a day. She started with her own phone. And they asked her, how did you do that? She said, I work a lot with energy. If I'm not ready to record, I'm not recording. If I meditate before I create content, I can feel it in my body when it's going to go viral. We're all capable of that. We are all. And it's not that woo-woo, because unconsciously the brain is perceiving cues and clues in each other. And sometimes it seems magical, but you noticed it at an unconscious level, and it's still our brain. Sometimes it's also energy, like what happened to me last week. I was talking with a friend about a certain type of clients that I want to have because they went through very strong trauma. And she said, well, maybe you should approach that category of people. And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready now. The next day, a lady is sending me an email that she found me online on the directory of clinical EFT practitioner, clinical tapping practitioner. She sends me an email. Can you help my friend? She is in that category of people who went to this specific type of trauma. I was like, wow. Wow, I'm not stopping meditation. I was on fire.
Yeah.
It keeps coming. And so right away, I was like, oh my God, what if it stops? Sometimes we succeed and we're like, oh my God, what if it stops? Again, we go to the protection survival mode.
Yeah.
So I tapped on that. I was like, if it stops, it's okay. My thing, I'm coaching now a lady with relationships, and she was going through these dating websites, and she's like, oh my God, she found a guy, but it wasn't working. And she was trying to, hang on to it. And I was like, it's not working, let it go. And she was like, yeah, but it was so perfect. We're so perfect for each other. How come he doesn't see it? I said, if there is one, there is 1,000 like him. And she said, oh my God, that was the phrase that helped her let go. She's like, so same for clients. If one landed on your lap without you doing anything, or just talking and being ready, it's not doing anything, being ready, you feel ready. 1,000 like that can come true, and it may stop and it may start again. Our job is to always to get ready, to have the expertise, to have, in your case, maybe it's, I don't know, material. Do you have a
we don't carry too much stock, but for me, I would say it is just, we're always coming up with new ideas. So we'll be, we'll be looking for one client and we're like, okay, this idea is not right for this client, but let's put that, we kind of put it in like a little vault, and we're like, okay, that's where we're going to go back to on our next client when we need some inspiration. And so we're always gathering new ideas to use for our future clients. So it's like, so I totally, that makes complete sense. We only have 5 minutes left, but I would really love to go through an exercise if that's something you think would be beneficial. So I was going to, I can either extend our episode, or I can send you another Zoom and we can jump on another 40-minute window, or we can just do it now if we think we can do it in 5
minutes. It may be a little bit
Okay, let's extend it, and then we won't have to rush. So I'm
think about something that's bothering you. because we're going to give that. If you want to be transparent, if you don't want to be transparent, give a general
I'll be transparent. I'm all about authenticity. Last week on my episode, I tried to do math on the fly and it was very embarrassing, but I let people hear it. So,
oh yeah, me too. I recorded a video and I did full Franglish, so it was not grammatically correct at all.
Oh my gosh. Okay, perfect. For what's been bugging me lately, we have a lot of quotes out to clients and not a lot of people signing the dotted line at the moment. So there's a lot of work on the horizon, but none of it has really like hit the books yet. And as I mentioned, things were quiet last year. So we definitely are on a tighter, let's call it a tighter fiscal leash at the moment. And I'm really feeling almost like I'm standing on a bridge between, what I can actually pay myself, pay my employees, and these new projects that are coming down the pipe. As soon as they sign, we're good. But it's like we're in this little gap right now. And my fear is, what if one of them falls away? We're in a bit of a precarious situation in that sense. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to give some kind of a title of that problem that you have. And for the people in the audience, they give a title to their story. We're going to use yours. They're going to substitute your story with theirs.
Okay.
So how would you call it?
Waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Okay. Oh, that's very general on top of it. Where do you feel, so you have an emotional reaction. What emotion do you feel about that?
Emotion, I feel anxiety. And in my body, I feel tight, like in my rib cage, like in my diaphragm.
Perfect. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being like I don't feel anything, 10 it's like almost overwhelming. How strong is this tightness in your rib cage?
I'll say 4 because I do have a lot of faith that it's going to be fine. And I definitely, like, my faith in the universe is stronger than my fear, but I definitely still feel it. Like, it's not overwhelming, but it's there.
Okay. So for the people who are listening, do the same thing. I'll mention the points before we start, because some people are going to listen to that in audio. So the first point, and I'll give you also a link to put below the episode if they want a visual.
Sure.
I have a silent video with the points. We're going to start on the side of the hand where, like, if you wanted to break a brick like a karate champion, that's the spot. Then we're going to go on the top of the head. If you trace a line between your ears and your on both sides and your fingers are touching, that's where we're going to tap. Then at the beginning of the eyebrow, on the bridge of the nose, then on the corner of the eye with a few fingers on the bone, under the eye, on the bone in the middle, like where your pupil is, under the nose, between nose and mouth, under the mouth, in the crease there on the chin. And then we'll go to the collarbone, so you can feel your collarbone with your fingers. You go a little bit lower and there is some soft spot, like it's not a bone anymore. That's there. And the last one is under the arm at the bra line for women, where a woman would have a bra line. So we're going to start tapping on what we call setup statement, which is, I'm afraid the other shoe is going to drop, and we will repeat your words.
Okay.
So even though I'm afraid the other did you say the other or the shoe is going to drop?
The other shoe.
Even though I'm afraid the other shoe is going to drop, and I'm going to give you some space so you can repeat and people can repeat that too. So even though I'm afraid the other shoe is going to drop.
Even though I'm afraid the other shoe is going to drop.
I'm on the bridge. I'm on the bridge right now in my business.
I'm on the bridge right now in my business.
Because I have employees to pay.
Because I have employees to pay.
And the cash hasn't come yet.
And the cash hasn't come yet.
There are quotes out, but nothing has come back yet.
There are quotes out, but nothing has come back yet.
And I have this anxiety in my body.
And I have this anxiety in my body.
And this tightness in my ribcage.
And this tightness in my ribcage.
Despite all that,
I
am willing to have compassion for myself.
I am willing to have compassion for myself.
And I choose to love and accept myself.
And I choose to love and accept myself.
We're going to go back again. Even though I have this fear that the other shoe is going to drop.
even though I have this fear that the other shoe is going to drop,
because we're in between now in the business.
because we're in between now in the business.
The quotes went out, but nothing came back yet.
The quotes went out, but nothing came back yet.
And I feel this anxiety in my body.
And I feel this anxiety in my body
with this tightness in my ribcage.
with this tightness in my rib cage.
I choose to love and accept myself right now.
I choose to love and accept myself right now.
And to remember that I am safe.
And to remember that I am safe.
One more time, even though I'm afraid that the other shoe is going to drop.
Even though I'm afraid that the other shoe is going to drop.
I have this tightness in my ribcage.
And I have this tightness in my rib cage.
With all the quotes that went out and nothing is in yet.
With all the quotes that went out and nothing is in yet.
I choose to feel safe here and now.
I choose to feel safe here and now.
Or I'm willing to feel safe here and now if people can't really choose that, if they don't feel it. And I'm willing to love and accept myself completely.
I am willing to love and accept myself completely.
Now let's go to the top of the head with 3 or 4 fingers. This fear in my body.
This fear in my body.
The other shoe, what if the other shoe drops?
What if the other shoe drops?
On the eyebrow point, sorry. On the side of the eye, this tightness in my ribcage.
This tightness in my rib cage.
All those quotes out and no order yet.
All the quotes out and nothing's come in yet.
Under the nose, nothing's coming yet.
Nothing's coming yet.
Under the mouth, all this anxiety in my body.
All this anxiety in my body.
Under the collarbone, this tightness in my ribcage.
This tightness in my rib cage.
Under the arm. What if the other shoe drops?
What if the other shoe drops?
One more time on the top of the head. This anxiety in my body.
This anxiety in my body.
Eyebrow point. This tightness in my ribcage.
This tightness in my rib cage.
Side of the eye. Nothing is coming up in yet.
Nothing is coming in yet.
Under the eye. This fear that the other shoe is going to drop.
This fear that the other shoe is going to drop.
Under the nose. What if the other shoe drops?
What if the other shoe drops?
All this anxiety in my body.
All this anxiety in my body.
Under the collarbone. All this tightness in my rib cage.
All this tightness in my rib cage.
All this anxiety in my body. Under
all
the
this anxiety in my body.
On the top of the head. What if I could let go of some of this anxiety?
What if I could let go of some of this anxiety?
Eyebrow point. I'm not sure I can.
I'm not sure I can.
Side of the eye. But it doesn't help.
But it doesn't help.
Under the eye. So what if I could let go of, let's say, 20% of it?
So what if I could let go of 20% of it?
Do you feel that it's something you can do?
Yes.
Okay. Under the nose. I now choose to let go of at least 20% of it.
I now choose to let go of at least 20% of it.
Under the mouth. I now choose to feel safe letting go of this anxiety.
I now choose to feel safe letting go of this anxiety.
Under the collarbone. Letting go of this anxiety.
Letting go of this anxiety.
It is safe and helpful to let go of the anxiety.
It is safe and helpful to let go of this anxiety.
Now stop tapping. Take a deep breath. Normally, I would tell my client to have a sip of water and revisit that fear that you had that the other shoe is going to drop. What's different now? Is there any difference?
I feel more lightness through like my head and back, and just a lot more calm around the idea. Like there's no initial like kind of response.
And what about the tightness in the ribcage?
It feels looser for sure.
Yeah. And we only did like a few minutes of tapping.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, normally we would go much in, and we could even go specific if you have one client in mind, or if you have like the other shoe's going to drop, what will it mean for you? What's the horror vision in your mind?
Right.
And the more specific you are, the better it works. But you can feel the effect in a few minutes.
Definitely.
And I know that when in life, let's say I don't have time to tap a lot or something happens, the only thing I do is I tap on the points and I say, here and now, I am safe. I am safe here and now. And that brings you back like to a calmer state if you don't have time to do more than that.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say for anyone who wasn't following along that as we went through the process, you really do feel kind of all those points of tension. And each time you kind of move the tapping, it feels like a little layer is peeled away and you start to feel kind of tingly in places and just a general sense of lightness and relaxation and focus, similar to what you'd feel maybe if you go get a massage, when you really start to relax into it. That's kind of the feeling you start to get as you move along the points of tapping.
And I want to tell people, because sometimes what happens is when we're afraid of something, we push it away. We don't focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we focused on the fear. So sometimes what happens is that the fear is going up. If that's what happened to you, go back to the beginning of the tapping in this episode and redo it. Don't stay like this because you're reinforcing the emotional response attached to the problem, and it will go down. It's just because you're not used to focusing on that problem. And that can be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
And I
get
think
discouraged.
depending how, like my problem was, I said maybe a 4 on a scale of 10.
Yeah.
If your problem's maybe a 9 or an 8 or a 9, you might have to go through a bit longer of that process to start to feel the effect of the calmness.
How would you rate your problem right now?
I feel good about it. We, like I said, there are lots of good ones out there, and they're not just we're in discussions with the clients and they've said, yeah, we want to proceed. We're just figuring X, Y, and Z out. So it's promising. And so I'm not too concerned. I'd be more concerned if it was like crickets from clients and nobody was even responding. Then it would be, I think, more of a 7 or an 8. But the ones that we do have out are really nice sized projects, and the clients are in discussions with us. So I feel okay.
Good.
Yeah.
And for people, really try it. Give it a try. Nobody sees you. You're in your house. You're listening to a podcast. You can do it in hiding.
Yeah, it's I think it's great. I was telling a friend before we hopped on this morning, we were chatting quickly, and she's very much on the same level as me with our practices, but she was saying, oh yeah, like I did that with my son. If he got overwhelmed, he's only like 2, with something, she said, do you want mommy to tap? And he would say yes, and then she would do her tapping on him, and she said he'd be like, oh, okay. But it's wild how it is like a physical response. And if people do look at it and think woo woo, there is science behind it. And I think that was a great point to bring up.
There are like about 300 medical studies about it nowadays, and they have brain scans to show the effect of the tapping on the brain. I mean, it's at this point, my daughter did a psychology BA in college, and they talk about tapping. So it's starting to be mainstream. It's not woo-woo anymore.
Yeah.
And the woo-woo part that I add after that, if people want to do it, is once you're calm, you go sit, close your eyes for a few minutes, and imagine that your mind is empty, and affirm, I am receptive to inspired ideas. I'm willing to be guided. And sometimes it comes right away. Sometimes it will come when you're watching Netflix tonight. You're like, suddenly you have an idea.
Yeah.
For me, when I do accounting, it's always when I have my best ideas.
But that's probably because your brain goes into like almost like a
Yeah.
different wave state where you're focused on numbers. And so then this like little door opens and it's like, oh, we can talk to her now. Okay, in we go.
It's probably alpha brainwave, like
Yeah.
Twilight. And
Yeah.
I used to write stories, short stories. One of these days I will do something with it. And when I was doing accounting, I was bombarded. I'm like, I can't, it's too much. I can't be writing for 5 minutes. It's really, when we relax.
Yeah, definitely. I think the last thing I really want to say on the tapping point is a lot of practitioners that I follow use this in all different forms. So whether it be dealing with trauma, dealing with fear, dealing with worries, a lot of people also will use it in manifestation practices. So reinforcing positive thoughts and affirmations. Can you talk on that a little?
Yes, so that's funny because I'm preparing a short to put on YouTube about that.
Okay.
And you can use it to reinforce your affirmations, like to boost them.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you need to be aware of is, do you have a negative association? Do you have a block? Because if you have a block, you have to address the block first. If you have a fear that it's not possible for you to, I don't know, some people, I have a big vision. I have a
Mm-hmm.
huge vision. And if I somehow am afraid to be on stage with that many people, and I'm affirming like, I'm attracting the stage for me, I'm so eager. And behind the scene, I have a fear. I need to acknowledge that. That's why I usually take a mirror and I do affirmations in the mirror before anything else to see how do I feel.
Okay.
And I have a video on my YouTube channel about that, to spot your negative beliefs about anything. And then if I see that everything's good, I start going in the morning. I do that sometimes. That I even have affirmations like, the universe is always guiding me. I have what it takes. I used to say that a lot when my kids were, because I had very difficult stuff with my teenagers. I have what it takes. It can be in the business. I have what it takes. I am also creative in my own way, because some people believe they are not creative.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you want to affirm, whatever you want to be true, you tap and do that, I don't know, a few minutes every morning, because the brain learns with repetition.
Mm-hmm.
And
And that's a good point on the positive affirmations. If you, that's a good point. Just on a totally off topic subject of manifestation and thinking positively. If you do have that kind of little voice in the back saying not possible for you, not possible for you do need to do the kind of the shadow work or the digging, the getting down to the root of it, like we talked about earlier, first before you start
yeah,
reinforcing.
you tap on that's not possible for you. And usually what will happen, open yourself to have memories pop back up, because it comes from childhood. Somehow,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in childhood, you heard either once or several times, that's not possible. Don't dream that big. I know I was told many times, stop dreaming that big. It's too much. And it affected me until and it's also like, when you go to the gym, it's in plateaus. Let's say you're going to get to a certain level of revenues and you feel okay with it. And suddenly you go higher and like, oh my God, all your fears are back again. So
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay. We all go through that. I had a client many years ago who was a very high executive in the corporate world. And this woman, I admired her so much. And when we started working together, she had it too. She felt she was not enough, even though she accomplished so much. So
Yes.
that's okay. We revisit our own fears and then you tap on it. And if you want to manifest, for me, what works well is creating space. Guide me, give me ideas,
Mm-hmm.
inspire me.
Yes,
That's
the
how I know
universe
it's
is
true and calling.
always waiting. It's always waiting to
Yeah.
just be. I always I try to like, I have a very creative imagination. Like when I read a book, it's a whole world. I have a very good inner vision. So I always imagine the universe as like somebody just like waiting behind a door, being like, "Oh, are they ready yet? They're not ready yet. Are they gonna let me
That's
in yet? No,
you.
they're gonna like, yeah, like, hello, hello, can you hear me? I'm here. I'm here. Can I give you some advice? Like, so you have to really say like, yes, I'm ready. Give it to me.
That
See what
reminds me
happens.
of something. I don't know if it's still on my channel, but many years ago, I believe in 2010 maybe, I created a video where I was telling a story of being the king or the queen of your kingdom. And you have all those advisors behind the curtain. So you never know who's giving you advice. And you have a situation with another kingdom. And one of them is like the fearful and say, no, 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 don't confront them. And the other one is aggressive when you need to be diplomatic. And the other one is, we need to go to war. It's dangerous. They're threatening us. Be aware who's talking behind your curtain, who's advising you.
Yes,
Is it your
yes,
fear, or is it your inspiration, or is it your creativity? Is it your doubt? It's
yeah,
always it comes back to awareness.
yes. And one tool, I'm sorry to the listeners because we're just whipping through some
I'm
tangents
so
here, but I love
sorry.
that. No, that's the best conversation. I think to tuning into, there was a good piece of advice with this another course I've taken with a manifestation coach, but her piece of advice was that truth and the universal guidance comes with no emotion. It comes with no feeling of rush, no feeling of fear, no feeling of intensity. Like the ego will speak to you with fear. So if you feel like, oh, I have to do that because if I don't do that, then this will happen, that's your ego. If something's coming to you with pressure or something, if the universe is talking to you, it's very neutral. Take it or leave it. Here's my advice. And if you feel
So,
like no pressure, then that's kind of the inspiration part.
and for me, so that there is not real emotion, but sometimes there is chills.
Yes, yeah.
I have chills. The name of my business came into a meditation and I had chills all over. I said, okay, I'm trademarking that name. And that's the name of my business. And yeah, it's a feeling of, when you're afraid, you're contracted. Somehow in your body there is contraction. It's the opposite. It's expansion. It's free. It's
I call
yeah.
it the truth tingles, because it's like if you know truth, you get like that little, it's like
Yeah.
sprinkles all over. And then like you said, it's expansion, because I really believe like when you're connected to the universe, it's almost like your whole vibration, your whole energy suddenly kind of momentarily joins with like the collective universe, and you're like one for a moment, and that's that feeling of expansion. And then you're like, okay, that's it, that's truth.
The truth is in quantum physics, and we're always connected. We're a soup of atoms and we're energy, but our fear will mask that. The manifesting approach, for me, sometimes it's also fun. I'm like, oh, I so want to do this video. I'm so excited about it. Like, let's say I'm doing something, because usually I record in batches, but suddenly I have, I want to record it now. So I go and I record it because the energy is so high. That's when someone needs it, or it's going to
Yes.
go out.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially as creatives, I think that's a good point too, because, we might have a day planned for accounting and all of a sudden we get this inspiration. I think it is important to listen to those pulls when they come, because like you said, it's because there's something happening in the greater scheme of things that is in need of whatever it is we're being called to do in that moment. And listening to ourselves and being in tune with that is important as creative people, to ensure that our message is getting out there and we're helping those that we're here to help, that we're supposed to be here to work with.
And know what's boosting your creativity. There is a program on Netflix that has nothing to do with what I do. It more maybe has something to do with what you do. It's buying Beverly Hills or selling
Oh
Beverly Hills.
yeah.
One
Yeah.
of those two. And I love that show because when I watch that, I feel worthy. I don't know
Yes.
why. I feel worthy. It's so beautiful. I'm very sensitive to beauty. And I love when I want to give myself a boost and be really feeling amazing and feel in my business or in my life, I watch stuff that make me feel like that. And it
Yeah.
may have nothing to do with your business.
Yeah. It's just the energy of it and what it does to you. So I love that. That's amazing. Where can people find you? I'm definitely going to link your YouTube in our show notes, but what else? Where can people find you, follow you? What's all your info?
So there is everything. I used to have a podcast. I shut it down for now, but I may start again. Now I do most of the things on YouTube. Everything is on my website, co-parentingwiththeuniverse.com.
Just writing
And
that down. And are you on Instagram?
yeah, but I'm not very present. So that's the thing. It doesn't give me a good feeling to post everywhere because I don't have the time to do that. So I go where it feels good. Where it feels good with me right now is YouTube. I don't know why.
Cool.
So that's where I go. And I'm getting interviewed in podcasts because I love connecting with people. And that's what I do. Instagram, I post a little bit, but that's not really representative of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good advice for people, because I know as an entrepreneur, I feel very overwhelmed a lot of the time by like, okay, well, I'm more present on Instagram and the podcast, obviously. Those are kind of my two main ones. But then I think, okay, maybe I should start YouTube. Maybe I should do TikTok. Maybe I should be on LinkedIn, and you kind of feel so spread thin. And that's not even your core business. Then you're like, oh God, then I got to do my accounting. I got to call that client. I got to order this. And you're just like, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm not going to do anything today. I'm going to go for a walk because you just
go
get
on
too
procrastination mode.
exactly.
It's too much. For I think for entrepreneurs, I base everything on how it feels. Does it feel expanded, or do you feel, oh my God, like you said, you have to do this and that? And believe me, I spent thousands of dollars in programs about marketing my business, I tried stuff, then I stopped, then I tried. Right now, I go with what I feel. And of course, I sharpen my tools all the time. I make sure I'm on top of my skills. I make sure I'm connected to the universe, because everything goes like that and out to the client. But I do what I love.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I think just focusing that way, and in this world, we will be pulled in a million directions. So I think that having more faith in how we feel in our connection, in what feels good to us, is really, and that goes right back to kind of my ethos of authenticity. It's all you can do to be your best self, is to trust what you can bring to the table and what is going to work for you, be good for you. And in turn, that will only benefit your business and your client.
Exactly. And your happiness.
Yes, that too. That's important. Well, Murielle, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time today and for your love and your energy. I have definitely felt it, and I appreciate it very much. And I'm sure everybody listening also does as well.
Thank you so much. I loved discussing and conversing with you as well. It was really fun. Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Well, I will send you the link to this when it's ready. If you would like, I know you said you don't have your podcast going right now, but if you would like the raw audio to repost on your end, let me know. And I can even share the video with you for YouTube if you'd like as well. Wonderful.
Thank
okay. Well,
so
I hope
much.
you have a wonderful rest of your day, and enjoy. I have to go to the office now.